know you call me like every week and you're like, okay, I'm ready to do that video on planting. And I'm like, yeah, we're not there yet.
I was reasonably excited.
And then you call the next week and you're like, okay, I'm ready to do that again. I'm like, yeah, I know, but we're not there yet.
Hi, my name is Jake Bostenkamp, Director of Agronomy and Research here at Liqui-Grow.
Hi, I'm Katie Hess, Director of Sales and Marketing here at Liqui-Grow. Dr. Jake, we got the shed door closed again and we're back to wearing our layers. But I think you probably want to talk about planting corn and planting beans. So yeah, let's do that.
Absolutely. So we've been on a roller coaster ride with the weather, as you all know. A week ago it felt like it was time to plant. Today it definitely does not feel like it's time to plant.
It is cold.
But the calendar is getting ever closer to when we should be planting anyway, right?
So when is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing I want to kind of acknowledge or talk about is corn and soybean planting date. The most recent research we have suggests that the optimum corn and soybean planting date are nearly identical today. Okay, that wasn't the case 15 or 20 years ago, but we've definitely seen that soybean are more responsive to early planting with today's genetics than yesterday's genetics, so to speak.
And the seed treatments are so much better that we're putting on them to put in the ground a little earlier, right?
That's part of being able to plant soybean early.
Oh dang, did I just steal your thunder?
I wasn't going to talk in detail about that,
okay.
But that is actually part of being able to plant soybean earlier. Okay, so what is the optimum planting date for both corn and soybean then? All right, so in northern Iowa, you're looking at anywhere from roughly the middle of April to the first few days in May. That's kind of the optimum planting time for both corn and soybean. Okay, as you move a little further south, kind of at the Davenport latitude, the optimum planting date is again roughly that middle of April time period, and then you've got about the whole first week or week and a half of May, and that would be the optimum planting time in central Iowa versus northern Iowa. So slight differences, but you got a little longer growing season in central Iowa, so you have a little bit more time to get the crop planted. And that's for both corn and soybean.
What about that southern Iowa? We've got quite a few customers down there too.
Yeah, for southern Iowa, we don't see a difference in central versus southern so much. So it's about the same planting dates, same optimum planting time. All right, so the next question is then, if I need to see both crops during that same period, which one do I pick to go first, right? And so, I haven't done any research on this per se, but I've thought quite a bit about this for a long time actually.
I know you call me like every week and you're like, okay, I'm ready to do that video on planting. And I'm like, yeah, we're not there yet.
I was reasonably excited.
And then you call the next week and you're like, okay, I'm ready to do that again. I'm like, yeah, I know, but we're not there yet.
Right, understand. Yeah, I'm reasonably excited about it. So I think we need to think about, let's first talk about the risk of planting corn early. What are some of the risks, right? So,
well, one, it could be short hybrid, and if you mess it up, you're not going to get that same number again.
Right.
That's what I think of.
Right. So beyond that, there's some other risks. So the risks are, you plant early, you had reasonably warm soil conditions, but then we get cold, right, and or wet. And so then it's going to take a long time for that crop to come out of the ground. You're going to be exposed to seedling diseases, but more importantly, those are the conditions that lead to an uneven stand.
But Dr. Jake, we've seen that the last few years. We have like a dry, nice planting conditions. We put it in right after our insurance date, the 15th, or let's call it. And those guys always seem to get away with it. Is it because the conditions are so good when we put it in that it's sitting there in nice?
Well, I think planting it into good conditions and then experiencing a cold period is better than planting it into bad conditions and then getting a cold period. But, Katie, getting away with it isn't very descriptive. Like, how do they know that they got away with it? If you took a 10 bushel yield loss, do you know that, mm-hmm. right? So you can get away with a lot. You can't predict the weather, right? You have to plant when conditions are fit. So you plant your crop, corn, let's say in this case, and then it gets cold. Well, you didn't know it was going to get cold, right? So you plant when field conditions are fit, and you hope that the crop has good enough stress emergence tolerance that it can make it through a cold, wet period after you plant it.
So Jake, you're talking about this optimum window. Let's just stick with that Davenport. We're in that late April, first part of May. It's still kind of cold, but the conditions are great, but there's a lot of, there's still some real cold weather on the horizon. Are you better off to put that corn in the ground like, the 27th of April and let it sit through that cold snap? Or are you better, and what if it's 2 weeks? What if, and now we're talking May 10th, May 12th, what's our better option? We get a look at them.
All right, we need to start.
I think we should just keep going, and we'll use some of this footage.
Okay. All right, so your question was, what do you do if it's the last week in April and you're unsure about the weather conditions going forward, and maybe it's May 10th or 12th until you can get back in the field? I think in that case, it's a judgment call, but I think in that case, you got to go ahead and seed the crop or plant something in that window that you have, because you don't know when you're going to be able to get back in the field. It might be May 15th. Right?
It might be June 2nd, like in 2019.
Right, that's exactly right. So there is a time and a place to make a decision. We can't always wait for absolute prime planting conditions. I think the trick is to understand, what conditions are really not a good idea to plant corn into. For example, it's not a good idea to seed corn roughly 48 hours before a cold rain or a cold front moving in because of inhibitional chilling injury.
Yeah, and you did that up at Clear Lake. You guys intentionally
We
planted
did.
some corn. So
Yes.
what were the results when you did that?
Well, it's been a couple years ago, but if I remember right, any corn that we planted roughly 48 hours before that cold front yielded more than the corn that we planted 6 hours or 12 hours prior to that cold front.
And we
I
could
don't know if I
probably
have
throw
those.
that
Yeah, we could probably
result
throw those results
up
in.
on the
but
screen.
there was definitely a yield reduction if we planted corn very soon before a cold front. In that case, so that's what I'm talking about. Be smart. We want to seed the crop when conditions are fit, but with corn, for example, we do want to stop when we get within about 48 hours of that cold front coming in, right? Soybean, on the other hand, we do know that soybean suffers from this inhibitional chilling injury or cold shock injury just like corn. But the difference is that soybean can emerge unevenly, and it doesn't really hit their yield potential, right? You can lose 10 to 15 to 20% of your stand. As long as you still have, roughly 80 to 100,000 seeds, you're probably still going to reach maximum yield. In corn, that's not the case, right?
Right.
So soybeans can suffer from inhibitional chilling injury, but they're likely going to be okay. That's the big difference, and that's why I think that if you're iffy about planting conditions, you're much better off to plant soybean than corn, because they're just more resilient to stand loss and uneven emergence. And they may not be more resilient to fungal diseases. They might be less resilient, but that's where the best fungicide, insecticide, seed treatment package you can get to help those soybeans defend themselves against all those waterborne plant pathogens, fungal diseases. That's where that comes in.
Cool. Anything else? I knew you had something else to say.
And so the other thing to think about, and this is the same for corn and soybean, you want to seed your fuller season hybrids or varieties first, okay?
Yes.
The only way that you're going to take advantage of those early planting dates is to seed a variety that will go a little bit longer, live a little bit longer, taking a little more sunshine. They have more yield potential, but its potential is the key, right? If you seed them late, they're going to run out of season and they're not going to have the potential. So when you're planting your crop, when it's early, be seeding your longest hybrids and your longest soybean varieties first.
Great, Jake. Well, thanks for being with us today, and hopefully you're staying warm in those shops and getting your planters and your equipment ready.
Stay in the know with Liqui-Grow.